Hi YouTube, this is Ty and welcome to the Test of the Ty channel. Trying something a little bit different for you all tonight. Let me know if you like this or not. If you like it, then I will continue this series. I'll just want some suggestions for topics. So today I'm doing something a little bit different. Some old school tea. We all joke about, the lady who threw the hot grits on Al Green, and many of us have, joked about it from time to time, calling him, Al Grits Green and whatever. And there were a lot of memes going on around with when there was that whole grits challenge on Facebook a few years ago. But what a lot of people don't know, or maybe forgot, is that that woman who threw those grits on him, her name is Mary Woodson, and this is her. She was his then girlfriend. Um, Beautiful lady here. She ended up immediately killing herself after she threw those grits on him and caused him second and third degree burns on his back and his chest and his arms on that, horrible night back in October of 1974. So here is an article back from when that actually happened. This is, and let me, go on and give you my sources for this before we go on and go any further. My sources are clearly the New York Times, as you can see, Vibe, Boombox.com, and the Chicago Tribune. The articles date back from 1974 to as recent as 2015 that I'm using for this. And so, yeah, this is the article here. Obviously, you're not going to be able to read that, so I'll go on and tell you what that says. Um, it says, a former girlfriend dumped a pan of scalding grits on Al Green, a popular singer, today as he was getting out of the bathtub and then apparently shot herself to death. Although the police were continuing to investigate the shooting of 29-year-old Mary Woodson of Madison, New Jersey, Inspector Dan Jones said it looks like suicide. Mr. Jones said that the authorities had found a 3-page suicide note addressed to Mr. Green in the victim's purse. The inspector said it was written on stationery from the hotel where Mrs. Woodson was staying. The police said the shooting occurred at Mr. Green's home near Memphis. The 27-year-old singer, who records for the High Recording Company, has cut 5 consecutive hit songs, was hospitalized with second-degree burns on his back, arm, and stomach. A hospital spokesman said the burns were serious but not critical. Police Captain William Maley said that Mr. Green told him he returned to his home about 4 a.m. after recording a soundtrack for a new movie. He was accompanied by Carlotta Beth Williams, 21 years old, of Denver. Mr. Green told Captain Maley that he went upstairs to take a bath and was just getting out of the tub when Mrs. Woodson burst in, threw a pan of, quote, hot boiling grits, unquote, on him, and then ran out. The officer said Mr. Green told him that he then heard several shots and went into an adjoining room where he found Mrs. Woodson's body. A .38 caliber pistol registered to Mr. Green was found next to the body, Captain Maley said. Mr. Green, originally from Arkansas, joined the Memphis-based High Recording in 1971. Since then, more than 20 million copies of his records have been sold. His 5 consecutive hits are Tired of Being Alone, Call Me, Let's Stay Together, You Ought to Be With Me, and I'm Still in Love with You. Last summer, Mr. Green was charged with assault and battery on the basis of a complaint filed by former Secretary Linda Wills, now 25, of Washington. The charge was dismissed on August 27 by a city court judge because of conflicting testimony. So that's what that little article right there says. So now we're all caught up on what happened in 1974. So that's not, though, that last part of that article, that is not the only story of Al Green beating on the women, but we'll get to that later. As you may or may not know, Al Green didn't find out Mary Woodson was a married woman with 4 children until after she committed suicide. According to Mary's family and friends, Al even unknowingly sent roses to Mary and her husband's home on several occasions. Her husband allegedly turned a blind eye, not wanting to assume that she was having an affair or either not wanting to confirm that she was having an affair. Mary Woodson is often, again, the forgotten element of the hot grit story, but to her family and friends, apparently what she did was really not a surprise to them. They say that there were a lot of warning signs that she was a bit of a troubled soul. You can see there that she's a beautiful woman. Apparently, she was 5'4" and very shapely and always dressed to the nines. And her family said that she pretty much had the ability to walk into a room and wrap any man that she wanted around her finger. But she had a rocky history with men in her life. According to someone who's a former friend of hers named Nora Drury. She would use her sex appeal to attract famous musicians like James Brown when they would go out to places in New Jersey and New York. And some say that it's almost as if Mary Woodson was partying hard to escape the pressures of being a very young 20-something-year-old mother and wife. Now, as far as dousing green with hot grits, her sister, Mary Woodson's sister, Jo James, says that she definitely did that. This is a quote. Quote, she definitely did that. That was her character, and they were the biggest, hottest pot of grits you'd ever seen. Now, unquote. Though I have to say that I have no clue how her sister would have known that. Did she just, want to be interviewed? It's not like Mary Woodson would have been able to snap her a picture of the grits back in 1974. Did we have clout chasers back then? Anyway, here are a couple of things that her family members say went on with past relationships. The first one, they say that Mary Woodson, um, before her second marriage, that she had an affair and she swallowed a handful of pills and had to have her stomach pumped. And then they said that in another relationship, that Mary Woodson was sitting in a car with a guy who was her boyfriend at the time and questioned him about cheating on her. And after he confessed that she shot him in the foot. But they also said that he got back together with her. So now, according to boombox.com, all of this happened before she ever met Al Green, and she met him at a prison where she was visiting, and he was doing a charitable concert for some of the prisoners. And apparently, he was instantly attracted to her, and they started dating. And Al Green says that he loved her, but she wanted to take things a lot faster than he was ready for. And on that tragic hot grits night that Al Green explained in his book, that he was in a Memphis recording studio when he got a call from a sheriff who said that Mary Woodson was arrested at the Peabody Hotel for smoking marijuana. So he went to the police station to bail her out, and he took her back to the music studio. Well, he was a bit of a ladies' man, and I guess she thought she was the only one. But then another one of his friends, Carlotta Williams, who was mentioned in that New York Times article, she showed up unannounced and, gave him a big hug at the music studio. And he was a little bit concerned about, how Woodson was going to react, but it seemed like the two of the women were getting along well enough. And so he did make it clear, though, before they went back to his house, all three of them, that he had a whole lot of bedrooms and there wasn't going to be any kind of kinky encounter, quote, with the three of them. So Williams, she began to feel some tensions. Now, this is the flight attendant, the one who showed up unexpectedly. So she just straight away went to one of the spare guest rooms as soon as they got to his house. She said that she had an early flight in the morning. Remember, she's a flight attendant. And so Al Green found Miss Woodson in his kitchen at the stove stirring a pot of water before he went up to take his shower. And according to him, he asked her, Al, honey, have you ever thought of getting married? And married, that's what he replied. Maybe we should talk about this in the morning, baby. And he says that they kissed. And she said, Al, I would never do anything to hurt you. And he said that he was confused by her saying that, but he didn't suspect anything was wrong. So he went on and went upstairs, took off his clothes, and to take a bath, started brushing his teeth when he heard a sound behind him. And he says in his book, I looked up just in time to see Mary's reflection in the mirror. She had a steaming pot in both of her hands. And he says, quote, in the next second, my world exploded into 1,000 splatters of pure agony. Mary had added grits to the water, making a thick, boiling hot paste. With all her strength, she hurled it at me, splashing the bathroom walls and scorching my naked back. The pain was so intense that I wasn't sure what was happening for a moment. And he says that his screaming alerted the other girl who was there, the flight attendant Williams, and she opened the bedroom door. Al Green says that he pushed past her and ran into a bathroom, and she helped him get into a bathtub and turned on some cold water from the shower. And he says, I screamed again, bent over, and started to black out when I suddenly heard over the thundering spray of the shower the sound of a loud bang. He said, I looked at Carlotta, again the flight attendant, and she looked at me. It was as if we both knew that something terrible was unfolding around us, and all that we could do was stand in horrible, helpless witness. Then another bang, and the sickening, unmistakable sound of something heavy hitting the floor. Woodson had retreated to a bedroom after scalding Green, grabbing his gun, and she fired one shot into a wall before killing herself with the second bullet. And like the other article said, that the suicide note was found in her purse. Now, here's where I must say that I do find it odd that two shots were heard, or at least they're saying two shots in his account in his book. That news story said that there were several shots heard. And either way, I found it a little bit odd. And yes, there have been conspiracy theories that perhaps Al Green shot her, and there was, this big police cover up to help him get away with it because he was a known woman beater, but he was a known woman beater with deep pockets. So there's the thought that, maybe he just paid the police off to kind of make it go away. And then, also a little bit odd that after this incident, he just goes cold turkey, stone cold Christian. So, I can't say that I believe the conspiracy theories, but I am willing to entertain them as possible. But apparently, later they found out that Mary Woodson had tried to kill herself just days before that night as well. So that does, also lend some credibility to the fact that she probably did kill herself as well. They said that she tried to kill herself just days before this incident by slitting her wrist and again taking a bunch of sleeping pills. So Al Green had previously written that song Sha La La for Mary Woodson prior to all of this horrible stuff happening. And he said that he will forever love Mary Woodson and that he's forever grateful to her. He said that she's the only person who predicted that he would eventually be singing for the Lord and have his own church 10 years prior to that ever even being a thought in his mind. He said that he chuckled at her statement and jokingly told her that she was crazy for thinking he'd ever do that. But it turns out that that's exactly what he did, and he's still singing gospel and preaching his sermons to this day at his Full Gospel Tabernacle Church, which is located in his hometown in Memphis. Now, remember I told you that we would get back to his story about abusing women? Well, he married his wife in November of 1977 after all of this stuff with Mary Woodson. 2 days later, now this is according to her, an article that I found from her in the Chicago Tribune, like after, she says that she came out with her story after Nicole Brown Simpson was killed because she just felt compelled to help people who were in domestic violence situations. So she says 2 days later, after they got married, that she was roused from her sleep in the middle of the night and beaten severely with an acoustic guitar over a disagreement about sex. By April 1978, this was just months before their first wedding anniversary. She said that she filed for divorce, alleging that she had suffered brutal beatings at the hands of her husband, and life with the eventual 8-time Grammy Award-winning gospel artist, who once sang "Love and Happiness," was anything but, I guess, lovely and happy. He slapped her, shoved her, threatened her. She said that he kicked her. He once beat her again with that guitar. And because she scratched his car once, he punched her in the face. In August, it was time for them to go on the road. She used to sing backup for him. They traveled to Florida, where he was scheduled to perform for 2 weeks at a hotel. She says, quote, We were on our way to the hotel, and I was supposed to, but did not know, the lodging arrangements, and he beat me in the car across the face and, quote, swole my face. She testified in a sworn deposition in 1982 as part of her divorce filing. My eyes were black, she said. The next morning, she says that he beat her again, this time for not being ready on time. That's what she also put in that same deposition. She said that bruised and battered, she went on, patting on makeup over dark spots and singing backup for concerts. Kind of puts you in the mind of that whole Tina Turner movie. And then she says one night during the 2 week stint, she was awakened suddenly by Al Green. She said he, quote, woke me up out of my sleep and said that I was going to be a lady, unquote. And she said that he just started beating me. She still apparently to this day, or at least at the time of that article, carries a scar near her left eye where she says that Al inflicted as he beat her that night with a hand mirror. I guess it broke on her face. And so in April, when she was 5 months pregnant, she went to Philadelphia to be with her husband, and he was performing there. And the court records do show that. And she said that she was spotting and feeling weak, and she didn't feel up to having sex. Well, she testified that he beat her with a boot and tore up all of her clothes with the exception of one dress. So she returned to Memphis, where a doctor treated her head wounds, including a wound that required 10 stitches. So after that boot incident, she filed for divorce, but within months, she dropped the divorce complaint and returned back to Al Green. And now she had ended up having three daughters by him in that marriage, and none of them were old enough to remember what happened at that time. However, there are other members of her family, including sisters and two children from a previous marriage, that all do corroborate her stories of abuse. But perhaps the most damning witness is Al Green himself, who, under oath, admitted to striking his wife while acknowledging the existence of domestic violence from the beginning of their marriage. In November, Al Green agreed to be interviewed for this story that I'm using for this article, but then he later backed out and apparently never agreed again to be interviewed as far as this story was concerned. But still, in a written answer to a divorce complaint filed by his wife in 1981, Al Green denied in 1982 that throughout the marriage he had been guilty of physical cruelty, of threatening to harm his wife or having a violent temper. However, in a sworn testimony, he admitted to abusing his wife, although he maintained that not without provocation. Classic beater talk, right? She provoked me to hit her, right? So, for her inability to have sex with him once, Shirley Green said under oath in 1982 that her husband beat her with a boot. Again, that was, when she was 5 months pregnant. And in his response to that was when they asked about him doing that, he says, are you stating that at any time, the question was to Al Green, are you stating that at any time you beat your wife, it was because of some type of provocation or harassment? That's what her attorney asked. And he says, yes, the beating of my wife, I kind of reject that because beating is a cruel word to me. Being slapped around, well, yeah. And so, again, classic abuser talk, they always minimize what they did. He doesn't want to say beating, he just slapped her around. It's a cruel act, Mr. Green. That's what the attorney said. He says, yeah, well, it's cruel. It's more scars on the mind than it is on the surface, though. So, again, interesting abuser talk. So thankfully, though, his wife, Shirley Green, did make it out alive. So in addition to this being some old 1970s tea, let it be a cautionary tale. I think that if a man will beat you once, that he will beat you twice. And if he's willing to do that, he's willing to go even further. So we'll, take the story as we have it that Mary Woodson did commit suicide, but again, because of just some of the details, just a couple of little details being a little bit sketchy, I could see it being a possibility that Al Green could have killed her. But what do you think about it? That's all that I have on this particular story. Please put some comments down below. Let's get a conversation going. Did this woman throw grits on him and then just kill herself? Is it possible that there's more to the story than we know? Of course, that's always a possibility. What else? Whatever kind of comments you have. Do you know more about this story? Have you heard more about this story? Did you already know that, there was anything more to it than he got grits thrown on him? That's just something that I've always heard and heard people laugh about, and I've even laughed about, but I didn't realize that the person who threw the grits committed suicide that same night. I never heard that part of the story. So let me know what you knew about this, and let me know if you want me to talk about some other old tea. And if you have some topics that you want me to talk about, then please let me know. Anything along this vein, some old stories, and let's just reminisce. Okay, I appreciate you for being here. If you like this story, please hit me with a thumbs up. Please get some comments going so we can get a discussion going, and please share on all of your social media, especially your Facebook, and subscribe to this channel so that we can come back here and talk about this kind of stuff and more. And I will see you on the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.